We will not stop. We have told you it's a fact. If you look at history, I have known no great man or no great woman that didn't belong to an organization, not one. The American capitalist system will so confuse some of us that we will actually think that we by ourselves can lead the people to their freedom. There's no such thing as Rambo or Superman. It exists only in Hollywood. Fidel Castro, as bad as he is, he needs the Communist Party of Cuba to help direct Cuba. V.I. Lenin, as rough as he is, he needed a Bolshevik party. Karl Marx was a great man, had to organize the International Working Men's Association. The Honorable Marcus Garvey saw clear and long, but he needed the Universal Negro Improvement Association of the African Community Leagues. Patrice Lumumba was a great man, he needed organization. Harriet Tubman was a rough sister, she needed organization. Rosa Parks sat down so we can get up. She needed organization. Malcolm X so loved organization that when he left the Nation of Islam, he created two organizations, the Muslim Mosque Incorporated for Muslims and the African American Organization, inspired after the Organization of African Unity. Everywhere you will see the need for organization. Martin Luther King was a righteous man, but even he recognized the need for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And while Nelson Mandela is known all over the world, he still has the African National Congress. Every brother or sister who truly seeks to advance the world must belong to an organization.
Welcome to the Jaybe Show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. Beautiful Sunday afternoon to all. Good to see you in here. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybe Show is every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you guys know that I'll be live every Sunday. If you guys would also like to see me here on RBN, you can also see me on Thursdays, typically for the Savvy and Jaybe Show, and once a month on the final Thursday of the month for the RBN Roundtable. If you guys will also like, you also can go to my channel at the Jaybe Font channel. It's linked in the description down below. So if you guys would like to, you guys can actually go there as well. If you guys would see a little bit more of moi. So if you guys have not already, go ahead and give the video a like, the stream. This pushes us out into the algorithm so we can reach more people and build more class solidarity, more class consciousness, more righteous anger so that we can be able to change this system from here on out. So thank you very much for that. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever we go live or upload clips. And if you guys have any questions, concerns, or any stories that you would like to give to us, then you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So you guys have that with us there as well. Whenever I have a guest, I like to make sure I get to them immediately for respect of their time. So just a blanket hello to everybody that's watching, and I will get to all of you in a little bit. But I would like to introduce my guest. He is an activist and organizer. We have Kobe Gilroy joining today. Hello. Nice to have you.
Hello, I'm Kobe Guillory. I'm one of the, well, let me back up actually. I've been an organizer in Chicago for about 5 years now. I am a middle school science teacher, a member of the Chicago Teachers Union. I'm also a co-chair of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. which is a part of the National Alliance that was founded out of the movement to free Angela Davis back in 1973. I'm also a member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and one of the co-chairs of the Coalition to March in the DNC. So I'm pretty busy, but you know it's all time well spent when you're organizing, just like that video of Kwame Ture. You know, it's a very useful time. It's a very good kind of busy when you're organizing.
Yeah, and you know, very appreciative of you taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us to be able to talk about this, especially this subject that I wanted to get into. And one of the things that I wanted to get into was this is why I actually had the thumbnail that I had, and I wanted to talk about how we can organize effectively. And so this is something that I wanted to bring up. You know, of course, you have the Black Panther Party with their different programs with regards to healthcare, when it comes to regards to feeding people. Then you also have the Uhuru House from the African People's Socialist Party. They're doing great work on the ground as well. And so one of the things that I wanted to expound upon first was because a lot of times, those of us here on RBN, we talk about the necessity to organize. When people like us say organize, we're meaning in building class unity. We're talking about building, dual power, things like that. And more of a 30,000 foot, description of why it's necessary to organize, aside from what Kwame Ture said. In your words, why is there a necessity to organize instead of just telling people to just vote?
Yeah, you said it. It's a class issue, right? So, you can look outside and you can see in pretty much any city in this country. You see things getting worse. Not even just in the cities, but in the rural areas as well. You see things progressively getting worse in terms of the city. The roads are dilapidated. The schools are crumbling. There's asbestos in the walls. There's lead in the water. There's people are homeless. Throughout by the thousands. There's homeless people, and there's at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, you have billions of tax dollars being spent on military, being spent on policing, hand over fist money being given to Israel to commit genocide against Palestinians. And, you have to at some point ask, well, why is that happening? Is it because the individual politicians who are in power are just bad people because they're just evil? They just feel like putting all the money into police who brutalize and incarcerate and kill people. And just an aside, my voice is a little bit scratchy because we had a protest for Sonia Massey yesterday, so I apologize if I'm a little hard to hear. But we see all that happening. And we have to understand that the reason this is happening is because we're not really living in a democracy, right? We're living in a dictatorship of capital, a dictatorship of oppressors and exploiters who carry out the wishes of our bosses and our landlords and, these corporations that sell oil and sell arms and whatnot. So, we can't expect any politician, no matter how wonderful their policy proposals sound when they're campaigning, we can't expect them to get into office and do the right thing because it is the right thing. If any politician does the right thing, it's because there's pressure coming from the grassroots level, coming from the communities who are affected by their policies. So, that's why there's a need for organization, because when we talk about oppressors and exploiters, they have a strategy, right? They have organization. They have an interest in it's like a dialectical relationship between the masses of people who are oppressed and exploited and the capitalists, the monopoly capitalists who are doing the oppressing and the exploiting. And they do it mainly through the strategy of divide and conquer, where they want everybody to be just looking out for their own interests, just trying to, just go to work and come home and be afraid of everybody around you. Hate people who are of a different nationality, of a different gender than you are. And of course, they actually like materially oppress people of oppressed nationalities and marginalized genders. And all of that is things that we need to fight back against, because it's not gonna the system is not gonna fix itself spontaneously, because it's operating the way that the people who run it want it to operate. So we have to build up the power and the consciousness to be able to destroy that system.
Thank you very much for that. One of the things that I was thinking about was that what Kwame Ture said is that every single person that is highly revered in our society, as far as being a revolutionary, has been part of an organization. And, some people may be new to this channel, but we used to have the name called Fred Hampton Leftists. And the reason why we chose that name was because we wanted to organize and to present news as well as solutions in the same spirit of Fred Hampton, a very anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist in that way. And we looked at the Black Panther Party and looked at their successes as a model for us to follow. That has not changed, even though the name has changed. And so one of the things I think that a lot of people are thinking about is, well, what made them so successful? And the success, in my opinion, is really in them diverting the public away from I'm going to try to keep this more layman terms. They diverted them away from the corporate parasites, right? Because I could say the capitalists, but some people don't know what that means. But you're diverting them away from the corporate parasites, right? You're diverting them away from the people who would subject them to, bad business practices. You're diverting them away from the extraction of the wealth in their pockets through people over exploiting them in regards to their rent, in regards to their food, right, in regards to their transportation, and really we're being extracted also out of our pockets while not being properly protected by law enforcement. So I feel like people need to realize that we can do it ourselves better than what the corporate parasites say that they can do, or the way they currently do it now.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's worth one of course, like, we should learn from the Black Panther Party, and I think it's also worth noting that this power structure of the corporate parasites, as you say, they went after the Black Panther Party with everything they had. The sort of explosion in incarceration rates and the explosion in policing budgets was kind of a direct result of the organization of the Black Panther Party. The ruling class looked at that and they got very afraid. So there were all kinds of assassinations, like Fred Hampton assassinated when he was 21 years old. Assata Shakur, they tried their best to kill her. They tried to put her in prison, and there are, she escaped. She went to Cuba, but there's still, revolutionaries both in and out of the Black Panther Party who they keep in prison either until they die or until they are terminally ill, like 40, 50 years later. Like
Yeah.
Leonard Peltier is still in prison. There's countless revolutionaries who've been locked up for decades, because of their political activism. So, it's always important to understand that, like, the ruling class is not, like, we're not in a fucked up situation by accident. Like, the ruling class wants us to be poor because, um, and stop me if I'm getting too theoretical, but, like, for example, let's say you work at like Starbucks or something, you make $30 of coffee in an hour and you get paid $15 an hour. Where does the rest of that money go? Maybe
Yeah.
$5-10 will go toward the cost, like the rent, the materials, the coffee grounds, the cup, all that kind of stuff, the amenities. But then, the remainder, the capitalist keeps, the owner, the CEO, the board of the board of investors, they keep that money and they don't have to do any kind of work for it. So it's
Yeah.
in their best interest to make you work as long as they can and pay you as little as they can. So that means it's in our best interest to fight for as much as we can get, and not have to work ourselves to death. So that's why, like, being in a union is so important. Like, if you're in a workplace, you need to have some sort of collective organizing with your coworkers. If you're in a, everybody's in a workplace, everybody's in a community of some sort. You need to be collectively with your community fighting back, because no matter who you are, if you are a member of the working class or if you're a member of an oppressed nation, you have enemies. You have people who are trying to extract your life force and turn it into money. So you need to be organizing against that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I think it's important to know, in fact, let me ask you this. What are some of the strategies in your view that is important when it comes to what is one of the first things that somebody needs to do in order to start the process of organizing? Let's say that they're looking for organizations in their area. They can't find an organization in their area. What is one of the first steps you think a person should do in order to start the organizing process?
Well, firstly, I think if you live in like a big city, there's definitely some kind of organization in your area, even if it's like just a block club or a neighborhood council or something like that.
Mhm.
I am definitely going to plug again the organization that I'm a member of, because we are national, Freedom Road. If you go to frso.org, you can see where we have chapters. Same with the National Alliance. We have chapters all over the country. And the March on DNC coalition, is putting in organizations from again all over the U.S. But as far as like how you get started, if you are in a place which does have an organization, which most large cities do, just going to meetings, finding out when those meetings are. Like, for example, the Chicago Alliance, we have meetings every Monday over Zoom, and just attending a meeting and seeing like where the areas of need are. A lot of the time, it's not it's not super daunting. There's some small ways to get involved. Um, there might be like public calls to action. Like, for example, we often we work with the families of people who've been tortured into confessing to crimes that they didn't commit, or wrongfully convicted, who are now in prison. And of course, our main demand is that they be released from prison. But for the time being that they're in there, we can say, hey, look, they need water in prison. They need air conditioning. They need their cells cleaned regularly. things like that. We can call into the warden, call the warden's office, and be like just calling a number like that for like 2 minutes a day, can make a huge difference when there's hundreds of people doing that. And if you're in an area without much organization, I think it kind of depends. Like every area is different. You can still get involved in Freedom Road, sort of at a distance. We have general membership, a level of general membership where you don't actually have to like attend regular meetings. Just attending like a meeting every 3 months is enough to maintain that status. But as far as like putting feet in the street, like I think it starts with identifying what you want to see changed. What is your issue? Because it might be police crimes. It might be the environment. It might be war. And identifying like, are there other people in your community, in your workplace, in your neighborhood, who are also who also care about that issue? Because most of the time there are. It's very rare to be the only person, or it's not even just rare. It's virtually impossible to be the only person who cares about a situation or a problem. Like even right now, like there's places that are having protests for Palestine that I never would have imagined, a year ago, caring about that issue. So, if you need to just like knock on people's doors, like that's a little bit more advanced. But as far as like starting small in a place with like no organization, I actually didn't have to do that. I'm lucky enough to be in Chicago, which is a city which has like many decades of established organizations that
Oh,
I was
yeah.
able. But I think we can't underestimate like the impact that like 2 or 3 people can make. Like if you have just like 1 or 2 friends who are outraged by the same thing you're outraged by, who don't want their tax dollars going to a genocide, who don't want police to be killing people in their communities. And to that second point, to when it comes to like police crimes and other things, working with people who are directly impacted is also very important.
Mhm.
The families of people who are killed by the police tend to be the people who show up and who fight back because they have skin in the game, right? So they have the most interest in getting justice. So whatever they're trying to do, helping them do that is very important. So like, if they need a lawyer and you have contacts with like the National Lawyers Guild, for example,
Mhm.
that can be helpful. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's many ways to first get involved. Personally, I started um, canvassing for community control of the police in here in Chicago, mostly on the south and west sides. Um, to just at meetings, like taking up tasks, like taking notes, things like that. Um, and then just working with the um, working with people who are directly impacted, and with other people who are coming into who are coming into the organization and also need something to do. Now that I have a few years of experience, I'm able to direct people to where their skills would be best applied.
Yeah. That's also really great. One of the points that you made earlier, I kind of want to marinate on just for a little bit, is that you said if you get 2 or 3 friends that you can get together to attack certain issues. That to me is really just a foundation of starting, right? You're outraged about something that, like, for instance, this is just a very simple example. You're outraged about the people who are standing outside in front of the bus, and there's the sign and nothing else. They're either subject to the heat or the rain. I live in Florida, so that's a reality. And so you take it upon yourself. You go, man, these people should not be having to stand out here like this for the bus. So you and your friends, you may know a friend that's good at carpentry. You may know a friend that's good at metalwork, and you guys get together and you guys actually build a bench for the people who are out there. But then not only do you build a bench, but you build an enclosure, something, to shield them from the rain. But then that grows into, well, some of these people who are waiting out here, they really don't have enough money for the bus. So you guys start to raise funds for people to get bus passes so that they can take the bus more. And then you start to realize, well, some of these people, they're having issues with their housing. So you start to go to them and go, well, maybe we can help them start a tenants union so that they can save money, so that they can be able to take the bus and maybe even save up for personal transportation, right? But this is how it starts, right? You get that ball rolling, tackling a single issue, and then expanding from there to help people. And you just do it with your friends, right? And one of the things I think that a lot of people just don't do is they don't go, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Just want to let you know I'm your neighbor across the hall, which is something I personally need to do, right? Guilty as charged. But we need to be ones that go, hey, I just want to welcome you to the neighborhood. We may not get to see each other that often, but let you know if you need anything, I'm here, right? I like the Mr. Rogers approach, right? I'm showing my age here, but it's being neighborly, right? I think that is the wedge that we come into because we're such a divided people. Look, our means to communicate now is this. That's it, and that's all. And it's like we can build community using our technology, but the best way, in my opinion, is on your shiver legs and using your mouthpiece. I think that's one of the best ways. And you touched on that, because I think that there's so many people we divest away from our humanity in order to maintain this individualistic type of bubble, when in reality we're still suffering even though we're still inside that bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like the internet has many benefits. I spend way too much time on online. I was actually kind of an internet socialist before I became like an actually organized socialist.
Me too.
But, it does kind of it does encourage a kind of communication that's not really productive, where because it's all just ideas, right? It's people arguing over ideas and not really trying to unite in action, right? Like we have there's a saying that one of that the field organizer for the Chicago Alliance, one of my mentors, Frank Chapman, he's always saying, we need to be united in action, not in ideas. When it comes to like the sort of within one organization, like ideological unity, might be more important. But when it comes to working with a community or working with an entire workplace, like you don't have the time to argue over like abstract stuff. You have to unite in some sort of action, right? Like, so for the example that you mentioned about the bus stop, right? Like, it doesn't matter what, who the person who's waiting at the bus stop, is going to vote for. It doesn't matter whether they're a liberal, a socialist, a conservative. It doesn't matter as long as you can unite with that person to, help get some change in that area. And also, I'd like to just add to To that example, in the course of organizing, you learn a lot about your local government. You learn like, well, why, like who exactly should have been responsible for putting this bench here? Like, is there like an alderman who is like, giving money to housing developers so they can gentrify the neighborhood while there's potholes and there's no bus shelters and there's people who are living in like roach infested like tenements, like dilapidated housing, and then like, through that, like, and then there, you might find that there's people who have on their own, like for years, like some old lady might have been going to every single town hall or every single city council meeting, and complaining about a certain issue, complaining about like, there's lead in the water or whatever the case might be. And that person might have like a whole treasure trove of knowledge. They know every single person in who is to be known, who has some sort of influence over the issue. So that's sort of the beauty of organization, is that we pool our knowledge and we pool our experiences, and we can do more. Like 5 people organized can do more than 5 people individually. Um, so yeah, like you through that practice, like you find out who your enemies are and who your friends are, and you realize that your friends don't even necessarily have to actually be friends with you. Like they're just people who are united by a common interest and a common enemy. And like that's kind of, it's humbling, and it's focusing to like do that work, like in on the ground, like at a grassroots level. You figure out like your own strengths and weaknesses as well.
Yeah. One of the things I was also thinking about is that you can actually move people to your position through assisting and improving their material conditions. Because some people think that, well, socialists, they just want to have something for nothing. When in reality, we're just workers who actually want to own the means of production. And we want to not only do that, but also build our community without the surplus value being taken from us. So when we are actually feeding the community, protecting the community, because a lot of times people sleep on the fact that the Black Panther parties that were actually protecting and engaging in public safety in their own communities. They also were doing, they were also giving healthcare to their communities as well, right? For instance, the African People's Socialist Party actually has a doula program for pregnant women so that they can have midwives whenever they have a baby. So there's many different ways, and then this can actually shift people's perception of a more of a group of people who are more for an egalitarian, equal, and equitable society. And so sometimes the trick is not the trick, but sometimes the vehicle is really to just feed them, baby. Just give them something to eat, give them something to drink, give them some clothes to put on, help them, either get housing or to maintain housing, help them to get transportation. That's the goal, is to show that we can actually have a better system. You just need to unite with us in order to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times people will go, well, socialism isn't going to help us at all. And the thing is, it's like, well, it can. It's just we need to come together to build that system. You know what I'm saying? It's like the old adage goes, if you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have to build it. But the thing is that you can't build it without people actually coming together and say, hello, hi, nice to meet you. My name is James. You know what I'm saying? Not your name is James, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. And, people, like, there's so much focus on being right. People underestimate the power of just being a nice, approachable person.
And kind.
Yeah. And, it's something that you might have to work on. it's like personally, I still do have to, work on my ability to talk to people. I've been doing it for a while. I've been like knocking on people's doors. I've been talking to people at protests and all kinds of stuff. But there's still, I organize with some people who have decades of experience. Like Frank Chapman, he's been organizing since the '60s. So like there's always stuff that you can learn. And as far as like you might run into somebody who's like, oh, are you like a socialist? And it's like, cool, like, yeah, like we don't have to get into at some point, like we do have to have that discussion. But if there's like sort of a pressing situation, like your landlord is raising the rent, but there's like mold in the ceilings, like what do we do about that? What is to be done immediately? Like that's what Lenin was writing about.
You just touched on something very powerful. The act of being a socialist is just as important, if not more powerful, than advertising you're a socialist. The actions are what matter. So, for instance, I can talk about being a socialist, being part of the proletariat, the workers own the means of production all day long. But if my actions do not reflect that, that don't mean diddly squat. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to really get through to their heads. It's like, I can show you a better system better than I can tell you. And when people, it's just like, where am I when the next, union strike is going on, and I'm nowhere to be found to assist them with their mutual aid, or, I could be bringing them bottles of water, or I could be baking a pie and bringing it to them so that they have, something sweet, to uplift their souls. You know what I'm saying? It's just these little things that we can do in order to really, kind of unite people. Bring up some cookies, y'all. I mean, it's not, that's the thing. It's not that complex, and I think a lot of times we make organizing to seem more complex than what it really is. But in reality, it's actually really simple. It's just being a good human being to other people, and then showing them that we can actually create a government around that, around being kind, around being compassionate, having an economic system that centers humanity and compassion and kindness. I think that's part of the part of organizing that I think that gets kind of lost in the sauce. What is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's always better to show than tell, like it's very, very easy to describe the kind of world that you might want, and people might agree with you, but then they're like, well, I have to feed my kids, so I don't really care what you have to say, so, when you show people that there is a better way for the world to be run, that matters a lot. And when you also show people who is standing in the way of that better world, how are you being oppressed? How are you being exploited? Like with details, with specifics, what is in the way of your freedom? And I just want to use an example from the RNC. We went to the march on the RNC. This was about a week or 2 weeks ago, and the police kind of took this like standoff approach, or stand back approach, where they weren't really getting involved in like de-escalating situations within the protest. There were a couple who were like running around and trying to give orders, but they weren't really doing anything. Like the protest marshals were the ones who were like, when they were like anti-abortion protesters, like screaming in people's faces. It was the marshals who made sure that the people who came there to protest were not like pulled into some nonsense, because like there's a lot of one of the strategies of these like right-wing like reactionary protesters or counter protesters is that they'll go to a protest, they'll say the most vile garbage and try to get somebody to attack them, so then they can so that person who attacked them can like get arrested and now has to face like felony charges or whatever. So there were so many situations that the marshals managed to de-escalate, right? There were medics, it was a very, very hot day. So there were medics who were making sure that people were hydrated, making sure that people, if they needed to sit down somewhere, that they had some kind of medical support. There were people moving around throughout the protest, handing out bottles of water and things like that. So, we're doing the same with the march on the DNC, where we've been planning this stuff since April last year. And now like for the past few months, we've been in like the logistical phases of planning, of making sure that everything is accounted for, so that people are able to be there, are able to, express their demands. We're demanding, an end to the genocide in Palestine, and we're demanding a lot of things that connect to that, right? Like stopping police crimes, stopping the killings of Black and brown people by police in this country, as well as wrongful conviction and police torture.
Yeah.
We're demanding legalization for immigrants. We're demanding reproductive and LGBTQ rights.
Yeah.
We're demanding the workers' rights to unionize and strike. We're demanding money for housing, jobs, healthcare, education, the environment, and not for wars. And just in general, we're demanding justice, peace, and equality. And all of these things are connected because, again, we have a common enemy, and we need to expose that enemy and expose the way that enemy works, so that we can. And in doing that, in exposing them, build up movements um, to empower our people. And like there's a whole lot of different organizations. There's like 150 organizations in our coalition, and between us there's a lot of ideological differences, and a lot of strategic differences. But at the same time, these demands are things that we can all agree on, and that we all recognize that as much money and guns and prisons and whatnot as the enemy has, we have the numbers. So when we organize those numbers and when we pool our knowledge and resources together, we understand that that's how history happens. So yeah, that's that's my another plug for the March in the DNC. August 19th in Chicago, starts at 12 noon at Union Park.
Yeah. I think Nick from RBN will be there that day as well. So that's going to be interesting. He might even stream that day, so stay tuned for that. One of the things that you also touched on, I think that was important. I want to touch on this as well as one of the final things, is that you touched on really educating. Like how many people who aren't as politically astute like yourself know that the same people, the same person that shot and killed Sonia Massey is learning their techniques from the IDF in occupied Palestine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all connected, right? What's going on in Palestine is connected to those of us here at home. And these same people who are trained by the IDF are now putting on their riot gear and their gas masks. And whenever we express our First Amendment right and our amendment to our right to assembly, then they're the ones who are bashing our heads in and saying, no, you cannot do this. And so you got, and this is part of the education, is connecting the foreign policy with the domestic policy. And then people who say, well, I just don't want to get into politics. And I said this to Chuck D a couple weeks back. I said, everything is political, right? The water you drink is political. The buildings that you live in is political. The car that you drive, politics has something to do with the safety standards that are in the cars that you drive. The schools that your kids go to, that's political. Every single, even the air you breathe has politics in it, because we have to have, air cleanliness by certain standards, and certain politicians are more for clean air versus the ones who aren't so for clean air. So everything has something to do with it. And I think the educating people about why it's fully encompassing in your life, both local as well as national, I think that's so important too.
Yeah, definitely. And, like educating yourself, educating other people as well, it's kind of like a dialectical process where the more you educate yourself, the more you're able to educate others.
Yeah.
And by educating others, you also learn and you also change and grow yourself. Um, and I just want to give an example, or a couple examples actually, from my organizing experience. One with CTU. One of the contract demands that we have in CTU is for green, sustainable schools, right? And a lot of people, they hear like green, like they hear the environment, they're like, okay, this doesn't really have anything to do with me, right? Like they might put a couple solar panels on the ceiling or whatever, on the roof or whatever, and it's okay, cool. That would be nice, but like I'm trying to get paid more, right? Like I'm trying to get materials in my classroom. But then when you really break it down, like the specifics of like what that, um, who like the history of why that demand is there, like why we as a union are fighting for that. We had this workshop from the Southeast Environmental Task Force, which is on the southeast side of Chicago. It's like almost in the suburbs, and they there's a long history of industrial waste being put right there. Like they just had they won within like the past 2 years after a lot of organizing, which included a hunger strike. They managed to get this steel refinery that was going to be built there. They managed to get the construction of that stopped. So the like anyone in that neighborhood, when you talk to them about the environment, they'll be like, oh yeah, like there's a steel refinery over there, and like there's all kinds of mess in the water and in the air and whatnot. And like sometimes they understand that that's connected to the decisions that their alderman is making, the decisions that the mayor is making, the decisions of like senators and governors and whatnot. And sometimes you have to be the one to say, oh well, this is what your alderman is trying to do. Your alderman is making deals with cement companies to like bring bring these toxic factories and chemicals into the air. So a lot of political education is connecting what people already care about, what people already know and have experienced, to the history, the broader like historical fight. And the second example is from the Chicago Alliance. We Our main policy demand. Well, we have two. One is community control of the police, which is that which is a principle of self-determination, right? That like people have the right to decide what public safety looks like in their own communities. And the reason that we have so many people being killed by the police is because the police are not controlled by the community. They're controlled by the people who are exploiting the community. So we connect. When people come to us with their issues with the police, whether they were harassed by police or they called the police because they were like going through domestic violence, and then the police came in and made the whole situation worse, or their nephew was killed by police, or their uncle has been locked up for 30 years for a crime that they didn't commit. We connect all of these. We get these families working together, And through the course of that, like people learn about how the system, like people learn practically about how the system operates, and the necessity of community control to to give us some organizing space, to give us some freedom and some self-determination, so that we can you know heal, and so that we can restore our communities.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate that, especially because the thing is like when the corporate dictators control every aspect of your life, what type of self-determination really do you have? And I think that's what we're trying to get back. I think there was I forgot who coined the phrase, but they said, I think it's fascism is just imperialism turned inward.
I think that was Cesare. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest with you, right now, we're being extracted, ridiculously by these corporate dictators constantly. So much so that, we're either too tired to think about organizing or we're too distracted to think about organizing. So, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think it's important for people to come together and to keep that in the forefront of your mind, even if it's something small. Like next week, next Sunday, in fact, we'll be doing some actions here on the ground in the Orlando chapter of RBN. And so we'll be doing some actions there, as well as we started a book club as well. And we're also going to be, I hate to use this word, but kind of proselytizing the worker solidarity, the solidarity between those of us who are unhoused and those of us who are housed, and uniting everybody to say, look, we can have better. We just got to get out of our own way and push for something better outside of this system. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And the process is not that difficult. It's just time consuming, which is an obstacle in itself for a lot of people, especially people who work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and maybe even people who may not work that much, but their time is taken up child care, or taking care of their siblings, or taking care of their parents, or many different things that they have to deal with. I mean, how many of us are dealing with just depression, and that saps our energy away? So that's just something that I want to also, convey as well, is that we really, are just trying to keep that in, as you can unite with your fellow workers too,
and
the system goes at you. Go ahead.
yeah, and I'm sorry, I do have to go in like 4 minutes. But before I go, I do want to just say a couple things. That's very real. Like all the stuff that you just said. Work, like my first year teaching, I felt like I had been hit by a truck like every day. Because I mean, I teach middle school in south side of Chicago. Like it's not easy. Um, and like I kind of felt bad that I wasn't doing as much as I was doing like the year before, um, as far as organization. But really, it's you when you realize like you're a part of a collective, right? Like you don't have to do every single thing. Like you don't have to always be putting in like 5-6 hours a day of organizing. Like if all you can do is make a 5-minute call to light a fire under a governor's ass on during your lunch break, like that's what you do. If all you can do is attend a protest every month, that's what you do. Like of course we ask people for as much as they can possibly do, right? Like if you have zero time and you can donate to an organization, that helps. So I definitely want people to not to feel guilty about not doing enough, and just like think about what they can do. and start there, and then that might you might figure out that you do have more more time or more ability to as time goes on, as you get more used to being in an organization. But the last thing I wanted to say, or two last things I wanted to say is well, actually three, I'm sorry. March on DNC, August 19th, we're going to be marching Union Park at noon. You can go to marchondnc2024.org. There's all the information there about who's in the coalition, what we're demanding, the sort of day-to-day things that we're doing in building up the march on August 19th and on August 22nd. That one's going to be at 5 p.m. The Thursday one, which is going to be when the presumptive Democratic nominee is going to get the nomination. The second thing I wanted to plug, which is kind of two things actually. Well, thing 2 and 3. Freedom Road Socialist Organization. On our website, we have a lot of political education materials. So you can read the articles. Our program is on there, so that sort of outlines our strategy for revolution in the U.S. As well as just articles about takes on takes is kind of trivializing it, but positions on things that are happening politically. And then the last thing, which is kind of related to the second thing, some book recommendations. I don't know if y'all can see this. Marxist-Leninist Perspectives on Black Liberation and Socialism, written by Frank Chapman, who is, still at the age of 80-something, still organizing every day. He sort of, in very easy to digest language, breaks down the ins and outs of capitalism and of national oppression of Black people in the U.S. Why we're oppressed, how we fight back for self-determination. And then I also want to plug another book published by Freedom Road, which is the Revolutionary Science of Marxism-Leninism. You can find that online as separate articles. So if you can't buy the book, you don't have to. You can read the individual articles online. But those are all bite-sized articles that go over the philosophy of Marxism-Leninism, dialectical materialism, historical materialism, imperialism, and socialism. And last thing I want to plug, I promise, Black Reconstruction by W.E.B. Du Bois. Incredibly important book to understand how things evolved from the end of chattel slavery in the U.S. All the way up until the early 1900s, and sort of how imperialism grew out of the system of slavery.
All right. Thank you so very much for joining me. Look, what do you have coming up next outside of the marches that's going to be happening for the DNC? Is there going to be any other type of organizing that you're going to be doing outside of that, or are you just guys going to be leading up to the DNC?
Well, the DNC is my main focus. I am, CTU is in the middle of a contract campaign right now. So I've been playing a small role in that, and then we're also fighting for legislation around community control of the police.
Gotcha.
Here in Chicago. There's also one other thing, which is that we're trying to get the state's attorney. Right now, Kim Foxx is the state's attorney, and she's been as good as a state's attorney can be, in the sense that she dropped the charges against hundreds of wrongfully incarcerated people. So we're trying to get her to do more before she leaves office. So we have an action around that coming up in August as well.
All right, doing the damn thing and organizing. Thank you so very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, nice to have you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so That was a great conversation. I think that was absolutely needed. It's not one of the most sexy subjects. I'm going to be honest with you. But it's a necessary subject nonetheless, right? Because it is absolutely necessary for us to realize that organizing is the most primary thing that we need to do in this entire process. Because everybody, we're in the middle of election year. We're in election season. Everybody's going to be like, just vote, just vote. All you need to do is vote. Like Obama said, don't move, vote. Like, no. That is a tiny little piece of what you can do, right? The major thing that you should be doing is organizing to circumvent the system. Ultimately, every single person needs to organize, and even just a small way. Even if it's just reaching out to people. I don't care if you're disabled and all you can do is DM people or email people. If that's what you can do, then that's what you can do. But ultimately, we cannot allow the levers of this system to continue to hold us by the throat. And right now, you even have people who were against Joe Biden for the perpetuation of the extermination of Palestinian people. And now they certainly changed course. They heel turn towards, oh, well, we just need to get Kamala in. No, we can do way better than that. And so that requires organizing, including outside of the electoral system, and especially outside the electoral system. So, yes, I always encourage people to vote third party or independent if they need to, but that's taking a Tuesday to bubble a couple of names in, vote on also, the ballot initiatives that are upcoming that could serve us as working people, and then also try to mitigate disaster based on judges, whatever. But ultimately, that is a very, very minute piece of what we need to be doing. The thing is that it's the organizing aspect that has to be the weight of what needs to happen in order to change things. Because the Democratic Party is not going to do it. The Republican Party is not going to do it. And before anybody comes in and goes, well, the Democratic Party is a little bit better than the Republican Party. No, they're not. They just say that they are. Just like somebody was like telling me, I want to be able to not, to keep my marriage equality, and my fellow trans people, they won't be discriminated against, with a Harris presidency. It's something to that effect, where they won't be eliminated because of a Harris presidency. And I'm like, you actually think a Harris presidency is actually going to mitigate any damage done to us? Meanwhile, Kamala Harris actually denied trans inmates from gender-affirming care while they were in prison. Come on now. I was born at night, but not last night. So that's the thing. It's just like when people talk about, well, all we have to do is just keep this person in so we can actually fight against them. Baby, that's not going to happen. This is why we have to circumvent the system. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, they're symptoms of the system. This is why organizing is so important. So thank you so very much to Kobe for joining. This is why RBN exists, so that we can continue to bust through the BS and bring it to you straight, no chaser, when it comes to what we need to do in order to have something for us. Go ahead, like this video. Thank you so very much to everybody. Now, let's get to the chat. Say hellos, salutations, all that good stuff while I have you here. So, actually, let me start to see if we have any Any Rumble rants? I'm going to check. Let me see. All right. So no Rumble rants yet. All right. So we're good there. Let me check on the Rockfin. Do we have no tips on Rockfin yet? We're good there. All right. So beginning, we have Miguel H coming in saying, peace, good to see you. We have Chris coming in saying, hello, 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 hello to you, Chris. All right. Volvo coming in saying, hey, 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 Volvo. Jacqueline says, hey, everyone. Good to see you, Jacqueline. All right. We have Christopher coming in saying, another great Sunday with Jaybe. Good to see you, Christopher. Bobby says, what go on, my brothers and sisters? Let me see if Mr. Jaybe asked the challenging questions. Yes. Thank you very much for that. Randy coming in saying, hello, everyone. H. Lukil coming in saying, hello, all. Good to see you. Laura says, hello, JB and everyone. Good to see you, Laura. CBC voter coming in hot. Saying, happy Sunday at JB. Good to see you. Crazy flower eater with the smiles on her face. Good to see you. Mouse says, I'm that guy who will knock on your door and be like, I'm weeding defense. You want me to do yours too? That's a perfect way to get in to meeting your neighbors. Hey, I was cutting the grass. I got a little bit of time and energy left. You want me to, kind of do yours a little bit too? That's cool, right? Mouse says, it was really interesting setting up the tenants union in my old building. It really brought people much closer too. Yeah. That's a part of the organizing. It's building unity. It's building a village, right? Because, everybody talks about this African proverb. It says it takes a village to raise a child, right? I always say it also takes a village to maintain a human being. When we're separate from other human beings, what happens? Our mental and physical health deteriorates because of lack of human contact, a lack of human connection. This system wants us to be robots, meaning they want us to deteriorate our humanity in order to create more capital for them, to create more resources for them, and in order to create more life for them. When in reality, we need to do it for ourselves. And by doing so, we just got to come together as a people. We got to do the human thing and associate with our fellow human beings. So great example of that, Mouse. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much to Jacqueline for the super sticker. Appreciate it very, very much. Let's go into, so I had those kind of starred. Let me see. Anna says, currently the people have no input or effect on federal policies. They could have effect on local policies, though. Like, for instance, when I brought up about ballot initiatives, right? So there are ballot initiatives that are coming up here in Florida. The two most famous ones are ones on abortion, as well as the one on marijuana legalization. There's also one about public financing of elections, which I think is also deeply important. And there's another one that is regarding making school board elections partisan, which I think it should not happen. So we do have power in those local and state levels. So I think we could start there. And then on top of that, build dual power and organize on the ground. Cowboy Kitty, giving some love in the chat. Good to see you. All right. Janice Anderson says electoral politics shouldn't take more than 15% of our resources. Most of our resources should go towards building community, direct action, mutual aid, educating peers and neighbors, etc. I agree. That's it. 7 October, Ho Truth Palestine says, nice interview in the UK. Thank you very much. All right. Nice to see people in the UK. Traveler's Wolf says, hi, Jaybe. Good to see you, Traveler's Wolf. All right. Rebel Seers love that village maintaining human being. Yeah. If it helps a kid to grow, then that means it also helps us humans maintain ourselves, right? It's kind of funny. Now, and just bear with me here. A lot of times we'll talk about, for instance, let's say you have a baby boy, 5-6 months old. You cuddle with them, you play with them, you kiss him on his forehead, you kiss him on the cheek, you hold him, you hug him, right? You tell him that you love him, right? But once that little boy gets to about 7, 8, maybe 9 years old, that stops. Men in the comments, y'all can actually attest to this. Because if you start doing that, right, even at an age-appropriate level, it's gay. Right? The thing is like what actually helped that little boy grow up to that point, and then next thing you know, it goes out the window. Why do we do that? I say the same thing when it comes to how we censor humanity. Why do we leave that away? Why would we walk away from that when in reality, that's what helped us develop into the adults that we are now? If it takes a village to raise a child, then it takes a village to maintain a human being. Therefore, being within a village to each other, within embracing our humanity, that is what helps us maintain a good base of being who we are. It's these corporate parasites that want us to separate from each other, want us to seclude ourselves. These are the same corporate parasites and some people who are conservative may get mad at me, but they want to center the nuclear family saying it's just mom, dad, kids. That's it. When in reality, no, baby. No. That's too small. It's too small, right? It needs to be bigger. It needs to be a village. Meaning, it can't just be mom, dad, and kids. It has to be grandma, aunties, uncles, best friends, right? It has to be people who are surrounding you and grow the family, right? We have to start looking at each other like family members in this country. That's honestly the way it needs to be. Of course, we're not going to put ourselves in particular danger, right? Because look at me, a gay black man. There's some spaces I'm not going into. But ultimately, we gotta throw away this isolationist, individualistic type of mindset that they want us to have, because they basically want us to be this automaton that's stuck in a cubicle that's working for them. And it's like, no, we can do better than that. And we will do better than that. So yeah, I'm sorry. It just gets on my nerves, when it comes to people talking about, oh, all we got to do is just pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, when that is bullshit anyways. Thank you so very much, Trusting Success, for the super sticker. We appreciate it very much. Yeah. Patty cake, baker's man. Put it in the oven as fast as you can. I love y'all. All right, so Let's go into the next story that I want to get into. This is one that I think is slipping by a lot of people's attention, by the way. I want to talk about this. Gilead is price gouging HIV medications. This is major. The reason why I want to talk about price gouging of HIV meds is that some people may go, oh, well, this is just a social issue, Jaybe. This doesn't have nothing to do with class. Baby, price gouging has everything to do with class. And the fact that it's targeting some of the most vulnerable people in our nation should not only give you pause, but give you concern. There was an article that came out recently that I would like to read to you guys. We're going to go over the entire article because I think this is really deeply important, because a lot of people just do not realize how terrible this system is. And this is one of the reasons why in the last segment we were talking about the need for organizing. So let's go in here. It says HIV drug could be made for just $40 a year for every patient. Says generic version of a drug already on the market, which can suppress and prevent HIV, would still yield 30% profit if the current price was slashed, researchers say. So here we have Gilead. And this came out a few days ago. It says a new drug described as the closest we have ever been to an HIV vaccine could cost $40 a year for every patient, 1,000 times less than its current price, new research suggests. Lenacapavir, sold as Sunlenca by U.S. pharmaceutical giant Gilead, currently costs $42,250 for the first year. The company is being urged to make it available at 1,000 times less than that price worldwide. This, ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people, is price gouging. This is one of the reasons why people are suffering. This is one of the reasons why we need to change this system. This is one of the reasons why we are sick and tired of being sick and tired, because we are literally being choked out of life in this system because these corporate parasites want to keep making as much money while having no regard for human existence, no regard for sentient existence on this planet. The only thing they care about is their dividend checks. And make no mistake, there are people who have HIV that are LGBTQ because they're either born with it or something happened where they may have gotten it either because it happens, either via blood transfusion, or they may have, shared a needle when they were engaging in drug practices, or it could be other different reasons. But this is a health issue. And the fact is that a drug that is literally 1,000 times more, priced at 1,000 times more than what it really should be, is crazy. We are literally living in a world that's run by supervillains. Look at this. Look at this. You could get a 30% profit and it costs $40, but they're charging $42,250 for the first year? $42,000. Isn't that a cheap Tesla? That's a brand new car. Everybody should be outraged. Everybody should be outraged about this. I don't care if you're not LGBTQ. I don't care if you are LGBTQ. I don't care if you are just a random worker in the Midwest. It does not matter. This should not be happening. Because people rely on these type of medications in order to live. This is assault. If this doesn't piss you off, then there's something wrong with you. Because people should not be subject to things like this. It says UNAIDS said it could be herald a breakthrough for HIV prevention if the drug was available rapidly and affordably. Given by injection every 6 months, lenacapavir can prevent infection and suppress HIV in people who are already infected. In a trial, the drug offered 100% protection to more than 5,000 women in South Africa and Uganda, according to results announced by Gilead last month. Lenacapavir is currently licensed for treatment, not prevention. And a study presented at the 25th International AIDS Conference in Munich on Tuesday, experts calculated that the minimum price for mass production of a generic version based on the cost of lenacapavir's ingredients and manufacturing and allowing for 30% profit was $40 a year. Assuming 10 million people used it annually, in the long term, 60 million people would probably need to take the drug preventatively to lower HIV levels significantly, they said. Says Dr. Andrew Hill of the Liverpool University, who led the research, said, you got an injection somebody could have every 6 months and not get HIV. That's as close to we've ever been to an HIV vaccine. Most HIV prevention presently relies on daily pills and barrier measures such as condoms. Campaigners want Gilead to allow generic licensing through UN-backed medicines patent pool in all low and middle income countries, or LMICs, which account for 95% of HIV infections. Similar mechanisms have been in place in the HIV treatment market for decades, where wealthy countries pay higher prices than poor ones. Says if that did not happen, Hill said countries should consider issuing compulsory licenses allowing generic manufacture in the face of a public health emergency. Gilead said it's too early to price lenacapavir for prevention, as it was awaiting clinical trial data and potential regulatory findings, but promised a strategy to enable broad, sustainable access globally. This would include both Gilead supply in the countries where the need is greatest until voluntary licensing partners are able to supply high-quality, low-cost versions of lenacapavir, and a voluntary licensing program for high-incidence, resource-limited countries. Gilead said choosing the countries was ongoing. Why are we choosing countries? Why not just give it up? See, boy, I'm about to get on my soapbox right now. Look, this is why we need to nationalize the healthcare system. I am done. Look, I am past single payer healthcare. I'm past it. I've left that back there. It's back there. Leave it there. We need to nationalize the healthcare system. And by nationalizing, I'm not just talking about having nationalized the health insurance industry. We don't even need an insurance industry anymore. We need a fully nationalized healthcare system, meaning doctors, hospitals, medical device manufacturers, pharmaceuticals, all of it needs to be nationalized. Because there is absolutely no way on God, Thor, and Vishnu's green earth that we're going to allow a system like this to continue, where you extract people for their resources, for their money constantly, and then overcharge them for a life-saving or life-sustaining medication. They did this for the pandemic, where they extracted us out of God knows how much money in order for us to not die. And now they're still doing it with groups that contract HIV. This is why I say we need to have a nationalized healthcare system. Have a government that is free of money and politics, and have a system where we call the shots when it comes to our healthcare system. Because we need a healthcare system that does not have a profit motive. Because once you introduce the profit motive to healthcare, profit becomes king. Which means what takes a back seat? The lives of people. If it even is in the same car. So when we talk about wanting to nationalize the healthcare industry, that means that what is the priority is making sure that not only people's health is the priority, but prevention is the priority. Because guess what? If you have less people that need health intervention, then guess what? You start to save money too. And because we can start off with, oh my God, it's going to cost this much money to help people who have cardiac disease, right? But then we start pushing for people to walk more, to do more cardiovascular exercise, to start eating healthier, which means we reform big agriculture and start actually pushing more whole foods and more local farming. And we start pushing more walkable cities so that people can actually do more cardiovascular activity, meaning that the rate of cardiovascular disease will tick, 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 go down. And because we have a system where we actually run our healthcare system nationally, guess what that means? Then we'll be saving money on top of providing healthcare to people who may have cardiovascular disease. And that's just one kind of an example, right? But this is why it is so important that we wrestle our healthcare out of the hands of profit. Continuing on. It says, but campaigners said it would be vital that all low to middle income countries, including upper middle income nations such as Brazil, had access to low-cost generic forms of the drug. Similar selections in the past excluded countries where the HIV pandemic was growing fastest, they said. Trials in low to middle income countries made the case for universal access even stronger, pointing to the Helsinki Declaration on Medical Ethics, which said that trials should only be performed in populations who stood to benefit from the results. Joyce Oma, Senior Programs Officer at Y Plus Global, a global network of young people living with HIV, said twice yearly injectable would be transformative for young people like me with or at risk of HIV. So this also would be a quality of life issue. Because if I only have to come in to the doctor's office twice a year to get injections to prevent me from getting HIV or to treat me for having HIV, then instead of having to get pills every month, that's a huge quality of life issue. That means that it eliminates all these pills that I have to take in order to maintain my health. So you're also improving people's quality of life. And then on top of it, $40 a year? How much are you guys paying for HIV meds now? those of you who may have HIV. And if anybody does have HIV in the chat, and they're willing and open enough to say that they do, because some people, they don't want to, and that's fine. But I bet your medications are astronomical when it comes to the price. Me as a dialysis patient, I see how much my medications cost. Thank God I have Medicare Part D. Because if not, I'd probably be out there on the street. Oma said, it's not an exaggeration to say that the meeting of the 2030 goal of ending new HIV transmissions hinges on Gilead ensuring people in the global south have fair access to lenacapavir. Winnie Bayanyama, executive director of UNAIDS, said treatment could be life-saving by providing a more discreet option than daily tablets for people who face stigma because of their HIV status or sexuality. So also, this is an update. It says the headline, this article was amended on July 23rd to reflect that although the lead researcher said it was as close as we've ever been to an HIV vaccine, lenacapavir is a drug rather than a vaccine. So this is one of the things I wanted to bring to people's attention. This is why, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Gilead, all these different big pharma manufacturers are only there to make money at the cost of our health. Because even if they came up with a cure, which the cure would actually be created with public dollars at public universities, they would just get the patent and profit off of it. And I digress. But even if there was a cure, they would take the money for that. They would take that cure and then they would charge you exorbitant amounts of money for it, just so that you would have that money extracted out of you. They would essentially exploit you just to have a cure. If there ever was a cure. Hell, they have a lung vaccine cure in Cuba. They have a vaccine that prevents diabetics from having, their limbs cut off in Cuba. There is literally a story that I covered that there's a potential cure for type 2 diabetes in China. And the US is preventing US scientists from collaborating with Chinese scientists. Because what would happen if you actually cured type 2 diabetes? Who would stop making profit off of diabetes medications and devices? This is why I talk about wrestling the healthcare system away from profiteers. Hell, hospitals will prioritize elective surgeries because they make money off of elective surgeries. If the hospitals were actually ran by the people, well, we will be focusing a lot on preventative care. So I think this is why it's important for us to organize, right? You know, I know that, Black Panther Party, they organize to help people with things like sickle cell anemia. They also organize to feed people. They organize in many different ways to help people. If we can organize to help people in regards to in regards to getting them healthier food in their household so that they can combat some of these illnesses, right? Like, for instance, I'm gonna give you guys an example. Rio Orlando and People's Free Kitchen here in Orlando, Florida, they are together and they actually have a farm out in Pine Hills. And in that farm, they use the food that they grow on the farm in order to feed the people who are unhoused in the community. And what is it? It's healthy food. So that the unhoused in their community is actually getting healthy food in their systems so that they don't have as many health ailments. Food can't be medicine, by the way. And so, do you have a small little yard in your neighborhood? Could you start maybe a little farm to start growing? Maybe you can start doing some produce, and then your neighbor who has a farm in the backyard, could they start raising chickens? Right? All you need is like 1-2 chickens, maybe, maybe 3, get 2 hens and a rooster. All right. All you got to do is maybe get an egg and, incubate it. And maybe you might be able to get, a couple of chickens and a rooster. And then next thing you know, you start, raising chickens. It's just, there's so many things that we can do. But this is why I talk about organizing and wrestling ourselves away from this system. Because ultimately, these people are either going to say, pay us or die. That's basically the system that we're in. And so many people who are going through, dealing with HIV, and you have companies like this that are basically saying, pay us or die. That's inhumane. Shame on Gilead. Shame on them. This is why the people need to own the healthcare industry. Thank you very much for listening to me rant about this story. Let's get into the chat. Talk about this a little bit. All right. $42,000. Gotta be kidding me. Jesus. All right, let's go into the chat on Rockfin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. He says, that was a cop-out by Chuck to say that he don't want to get political when he made his career off just that. He talks a whole bunch of cryptic speaking on X. I say, bring on Professor Griff, the member who put Zionist Jews for their deviltry and got kicked out of the group because of it. Also, the brother mentioned Dubois. Don't be fooled. He was funded by Zionist part of the Boule, and despite talking a good game on socialism, no true socialist says the only talented 10, aka professional managerial class, are qualified to lead Black people. Seeing that's hierarchical and socialism is horizontal. He might have said some good things, but he was a fraud. I had to turn Sabs on to Who the True Socialist for at least the closest to it was. Even brought her a book for her birthday when she came here of Asa Philip Randolph, who organized the first Black worker-led union as head of the Pullman Car Porters, and the only one who was able to bring together Roy Watkins, Dr. King, and a whole bunch of other civil rights leaders for their March on Washington. Why? Because he was about to do a March on Washington on FDR's ass, and FDR was like, he's really going to bring all these Negroes here. Okay, give him what he wants. Guardian do that. Booker T didn't do that. Neither did Du Bois. Time that Black worker socialists thought embracing him and not Du Bois. I suggest that be your next book after presidential. Okay. Says first pass a right of first refusal amendment to state constitutions using CBI process, citizen ballot initiative process. Then tax the ish out of companies to get them to leave the state. Then they realize before they leave, we say, sure, leave, but make sure you leave your company at the door, because they'll be forced to make an offer to workers to purchase via grants. If loans, the government owes it until workers work it off to own it. And that's another thing. I think that's important, Roger, because a lot of times we'll talk about how, workers should get right of first refusal in order to own, the company. And then people go, well, how are workers going to get the money raised in order to buy the company collectively? Well, the government can actually give them a loan, a very low interest loan to pay the government back. They can either give them a grant or a low interest loan. I honestly think that for lower income areas where employees work, I think it should be a grant. But then if they're, more affluent and they want to collectively own, if they come from an affluent area, then yeah, go ahead and give them a loan, a low interest loan. But they should all be able to get right of first refusal and collectively own the company. I personally think that anything that has to do with health, including gyms, people will be crazy, like gyms too. Yes, gyms should actually be part of the nationalized healthcare system. So yeah, that LA Fitness needs to be owned by the people. And I also think that in LA Fitness, if it was collectively owned by the people, part of an NHS style system, would also not only have trainers, but also dietitians, as well as doctors that work at that gym to teach people about how their body works, and dietitians, neighborhood dietitians that actually teach people how their body processes food and more, and how does it go. Oh my God, it would be wonderful. But you got to get money out of politics too for that too, which can be done through revolutionary action as well as pushing things like CBI process. So thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. All right, so let me go to see if we have a Rumble rant. Gonna check on here. Looks like we're decent on that. No Rumble rants yet. Okay, let's go to the rest of the chat, and then we can get into the house cleaning. House cleaning. All right. Oh, hey, Indy left. Says just came to say hey and love my brother Jaybe. Love you too, Indy. Good to see you. If you guys have not followed Indy Left, they do great work on their side of the internet. Go ahead and give them a follow. All right. Thank you so very much. Good to see you in here. Let me see. Not Yo Mama says, if a smaller lab comes out with something that works, the bigger companies just buy them out. What monopoly trust laws? Yep. Unfortunately, that happens too. This is why I say it just needs to be collectively owned. Let me see here. Yep. Jacqueline says, and that's always a sort of domiciles hanging over your head, because what if they ever decide you're not eligible for Medicaid because they've changed their rules or whatever? Yeah. And then, like, for instance, let's say you actually can get a good discount. Let's say, you know, you get a good discount on the medication for HIV, this medication. And then they rule you on private insurance no longer eligible, or they drop it. You know? That's why that's why I say, nah, it shouldn't be just, even just a government run insurance. Nah, we need to just own it all outright completely. Laura says they can make it a lot of money if it was marketed to the masses, but they don't want the masses to live. They don't want to see the masses healthy, happy, and thriving. Crazy Flower Ear says, normalize yelling at your city council during every single public comment section. I've seen some people say some things. Let me see. Zoya says Black Panthers had a variety of programs from food to health to clothes. Yep. Absolutely. Dana Fairbanks says, I live in a studio apartment. I have a hydroponic garden. It was quite affordable. Nice. Yeah. I'm trying to greenerize, my space too, But yeah, I'm trying to. And I have a couple more plants that you guys can't see, but I'm trying to greenify my area. But I live in an apartment now, so I don't have that much room. But if there's somebody nearby who would have like a garden or something, I'm thinking about growing herbs. Maybe I can grow some herbs. Maybe like some thyme, some basil, lemongrass, marjoram, some mint. I'm thinking about it. If I can grow it inside maybe I can put it on my windowsill. I get a lot of light in here. I don't know. I'm going to think about it. But yeah, I could do that too. You can grow scallions just, by the way, those of you who are watching, you can regrow scallions by just taking the root part, the white in the root, and place it in water and let it grow. And you can regrow scallions. Buy them once and then keep regrowing them. The same thing can be done, well, not necessarily the exact same way. I think the same thing can be done for celery as well, but I think you need, soil for it to grow. And I think you can probably do it with leeks as well. Don't quote me on it, but I definitely know you can do it with scallions, just a cup of water and some sunlight. So I want to do that. I got to buy scallions though, but green onions, I got to do that, but yeah. Oh, Roger said guardian was meant to say guardy. Okay. I got you. Thank you so much. Outsider Steelers fan says they don't want us too healthy. It's all by design. Yeah. Absolutely. I also think that, okay, just hear me out. And I want to credit this, from one of the members of the Orlando chapter of RBN. She's a physician. She was saying how she thinks there should be a collaboration between Eastern and Western medicine. And then we should start doing research on Eastern medicine. I also think on indigenous medicine and indigenous medicine practices, I think that actually should be studied at the level of medical schools and see their effectiveness, right? Their efficacy. Because if you do that, and if it actually works towards cure, see, this is why we need to also own the healthcare system nationally. Because if it's something that can actually provide a cure, well, then that also lowers the cost of our healthcare expenses too. Because if it's a cure, well, then you don't have to, you don't have to have as much money set aside for treatment. See, my brain is working right now. So, but thank you for entertaining me. Not entertaining me. Tolerating me. Yeah. And yes, Janice says celery, red and yellow onions too. Red onions are great, especially in tuna fish. Oh man. Making your mouth kind of water right now, isn't it? All right. So just want to give a big shout out to the patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, we would not be able to do this type of work. Look, this is one of the reasons why we are doing what we're doing here, because we try to walk the walk and talk the talk here on RBN. One of the things I am heartened by is how we try to do what we can to get out into the streets. I know Sabi and the Boston chapter is trying to do another action in the near future. We at the Orlando chapter will be doing an action next Sunday, in fact. So we'll be out here on the ground helping our communities. I know Rome is continuing the building of the library, which is also deeply important. And then Nick will also be doing actions in a few weeks, protesting against the DNC. So we're literally trying to do actions on the ground as much as we possibly can. And because of you guys, we're able to constantly do this work. And without you guys, we would not be able to do it. So thank you so very much. Roger Meadow says nationalization begins in the state by state. I also agree with that. I think that, pushing for that in our respective organization groups can also help with that as well. Roger, we talked about that in the background. So yes, I agree with you there. That's a great point to bring up. Thank you very much for that. Let me make sure that I have. So I just want to let you guys know as well. Like I said, next Sunday, we'll give you guys details, in a little bit, but Orlando Mutual Aid Chapter, we're doing an action on Sunday, August 4th, 2024. Most likely is going to be in the late morning. And we're going to be we're thinking about starting downtown Orlando. Stay tuned for the location. I think it's going to be late morning, probably around 11 a.m. because we don't want to be out here when it's too hot, because it's like a dragon's armpit out here, I'm telling you. But we're trying to continuously do mutual aid out here in Orlando. And also, while we're doing mutual aid, teaching people about class solidarity, how this capitalist system continues to subject us to this violence that we see day in and day out, and what we can do by coming together. So that's what we're trying to do here in Orlando. So if you guys would like to come out, if you guys would like to join, you guys would like to meet me, then I would love to invite you guys to come out to also help our unhoused neighbors here in Orlando. If you're in Central Florida, if you guys are in places that you guys want to drive out, if you're in Kissimmee, if you're in Ocoee, if you're in Altamont, if you're in Lake Mary, hell, if you're in Daytona, if you're in Tampa, if you're in Clearwater, Brandon, what have you, Deltona, come on down and meet and help us out it will be a great time. And also, if you guys would like to, you guys can donate if you guys would like to $Orlando RBN on Cash App. That also helps. We're trying to raise money as well for grocery gift cards to give away to our unhoused neighbors as well. So it's really a teaching as well as providing resources to our unhoused neighbors campaign that we're going to be doing. And this also will help us grow in, our not only people knowing who we are, but other groups that are doing the same type of work, that we can also do more collaborations with them. Now, there's Real Orlando out here as well that's doing great work. If you guys have not, then you guys can also look into them. REAL is an acronym for is for Revolutionary Education Action League. They're doing great work here in Orlando. I've actually interviewed them as well on their farm. And then also there is People's Free Kitchen, who is part of Real Orlando. They're also feeding people. In fact, they fed people this morning from the farm, to the unhoused neighbors in the Orlando area. So they also do great work as well. I know Food Not Bombs does work out here in Orlando. I'm trying to get in touch with them. It's very difficult, but I would love to do more collaborations with Food Not Bombs as well. So that's also another organization that you guys can try to reach out to in your respective areas too. But yes, so that's what we're trying to do. We're going to be doing next Sunday. So we got pretty much all of our supplies. We're going to come together to put the supplies together and then meet out in downtown Orlando to distribute care packages to our unhoused neighbors. So that's going to be great. So yes. Also, just to let you guys know, on my channel, I do readings. So I do readings of Water in the Spirit. So I'll be continuing that reading as well. And then I'll also continuing the reading of The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. We're going to be continuing that reading. And then later this week, I'll also be doing the reading of Presidential again by Margaret Kimberly. I've already covered Washington, Adams, Jefferson. Jefferson was a bastard. And the next one I'll be doing is James Madison. So I'll be touching on him. But yes, this book, oh my gosh, it is so digestible. I cannot wait to have Margaret Kimberly on to talk about this book. Jesus, this book was good. And I'm only up to part 4. Lord, that woman can write. She was cooking in the kitchen when she wrote that book. Woo! Anyway, so we're going to be heading on out because I got a meeting to go to. But I gotta make this chicken too. I'm making a whole chicken. I'm stuffing it too. But yes, we'll be doing that. So thank you very much to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. It was such a great conversation. And thank you to Dubula for coming in from the Revolution my goodness, Freedom Road Socialist Organization. So yes, thank you very much for coming on earlier. All right, everybody. I will see y'all in the next one. And look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Like I always say, smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. Or read because reading is fundamental. But in any case, always be good to your neighbors and get to know them. And be kind to your fellow workers. And if you encounter somebody that is unhoused, acknowledge them. Let them know that you see them as a human being. Okay? Don't isolate them. Isolation is how you kill a human being. We want to breathe life into them. And breathe life into your fellow people who may either live next to you or live down the hall from you. All right? Mwah. Forehead kisses. I'll see you on the next one. Deuces, Bruce.